As the election of 1816 approaches, many people in the North are impatient with the ongoing procession of Virginia presidents. But the Republicans have no trouble electing yet another Virginian in 1816. It isn't even much of a contest. James Monroe, former Secretary of State and Revolutionary War veteran, is 61 years old when he takes office.
After the Madisons left, just having started to build a rudimentary structure, Congress and the federal government enters into what we might call its adolescence. And like all adolescents, it's sort of gangly and uncontrolled and rebellious, and there was this sort of power push. There was this need for power, but no structure to contain it. So people are scrambling, men and women of political families are scrambling, trying to create power structures and coalitions and executive committees.
Monroe's cabinet includes both Federalists and Republicans from North and South, East and West. These years are characterized as the era of good feelings. There is little political opposition, at least on the surface.
Even in this early period in the United States, it's become clear that the office of Secretary of State, held by John Quincy Adams, was the stepping stone to the presidency. But other cabinet members were constantly jostling for position. And congressional committees are starting to form as well. And they also see themselves as kingmakers and power makers. So Congress in some ways had the powers to pick presidents because of the way the election system was structured. But of course, a president would have the ability to elevate someone from Congress to the cabinet where they could have a shot at being a president. So the big story for the Monroe administration, as far as I'm concerned, is this growing relationship, this I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, between the cabinet and the Congress.
Monroe was not a terribly bright man, but he's, of course, the last of the great Virginia dynasty in the emerging old Republican tradition of a strict constructionist.
James Monroe was very committed to retaining this Republican vision of the presidency as a powerless office. In fact, one of the things we know about James Monroe, he was the last president to wear the old-fashioned clothes of the Revolution, the breeches and stockings, which even in his day was considered rather quaint. But it was his way of indicating through his clothing that he was trying actually to take the presidency backwards to this Republican vision.
Some of the 19th century's more prominent legislators argue for a more nationalistic approach.
I think Henry Clay in the 19th century has a blueprint, an economic vision that, although not entirely realized during his lifetime, is important in setting the terms at which the national debate over political economy will take place. And a vision that stresses internal improvements in order to create a domestic market that would link West and East firmly together, that would keep the Union together, that would create high enough tariffs to protect domestic industries in order to encourage the development of domestic industries. That Henry Clay's is a vision that in some senses is the vision that ultimately triumphs, that the United States does in fact develop an industrial base